In the previous lessons, we saw how we analytically break down the metropolitan complexity into its 4 dimensions: the physical, social, economic, and governance dimensions. Each one of them has a specific goal to reach, but they all together contribute to achieving the ultimate goal of the metropolis, which is sustainability. Then, we saw how each of these dimensions is internally articulated into a series of principles, issues, operators, and operations to address metropolitan dynamics. Together with the goals, these elements build up the Metropolitan General Issues and Principles framework that is the basis of the integrated learning approach to metropolitan complexity for bridging the gap between the real city and the goal of the metropolis. In this lesson, we will explain how to apply this theoretical framework in actual context through Metro-dology, that is, the methodology for the practice of the metropolitan discipline. Metro-dology is the design process of the metropolitan architecture project. It is a sequence of phases implemented with specific tools that support the decision-making process of the physical transformations of a metropolis through the building of a metropolitan narrative. Metropolitan contexts are a territorial assemblage of rural and urban patterns of settlements and infrastructural networks, merging with the natural elements and historical traces of places, and producing hybrid landscapes that are the new living environment for billions of metropolitan citizens. To build a multidimensional and multiscalar narrative of these territories is essential for investigating the complexity of a metropolis, thus for implementing the methodology. Fact-finding is the first phase of the methodology. It starts with the narrative of internal experts, namely local decision-makers and civil servants of a metropolis. They describe the problems, needs, and expectations of their metropolis and the tools available to address them. Metropolitan experts, who are external experts, analyze in a constant dialogue with local authorities this storytelling and have an insight into the problems of the metropolis and of the processes that may produce them. After further investigating this interpretation with the support of the existing literature and the help of other local and global metropolitan actors, metropolitan experts define the stakeholder map. That is, they identify the decision makers concerned with the problems of that metropolis. Various stakeholders with different disciplinary expertise are gathered to form panels debating a shared interest where the related needs and problems are transformed into metropolitan dynamics. Metropolitan dynamics represent the interplay among a series of phenomena explaining the processes generating an issue and the gap in reality. These are related to specific topics, therefore have limited factors to consider compared to the entire complexity. However, the reconstruction of the network of relations allows for the restoration of the meaning of each part within the system. The interpretation of the narrative through the identified dynamics define the storyboard of a metropolis. The storyboard represents the big picture of the issues of a given metropolis and of the dynamics that produce them. Through the glossary of the metropolitan keywords that are used in describing the dynamics, the storyboard is connected to the semantic package. Semantic packages are a set of informative levels, that is, catalogs of data needed to describe the phenomena produced by the metropolitan dynamics. To represent a given phenomenon, data within different catalogs are selected through transversal paths of reading. The transition to the semantic package leads to the second phase of the methodology, which is the problem setting. In this phase, the metropolitan dynamics identified in the stakeholder panels and communicated with the storyboard are represented into maps with metropolitan cartography. Metropolitan cartography is a set of maps produced with selected open-source data that are put in relation according to an interdisciplinary path of reading of the semantic package to describe metropolitan phenomena. Thus, they present the stakeholders' narrative in a transversal and multiscalar way. 2 types of maps are produced in this phase: synthesis maps and value charts. They are a multiscalar set of maps referred to the operators in the Metropolitan General Issues and Principles framework, and through them to the principles, issues, and site-specific operations. A first set of synthesis maps, that are named protocol maps as they are same for every metropolis, show the continuity of the green and grey infrastructures and are essential for detecting the underlying structure of metropolitan areas and regions and understand the relationships amongst its agencies and parts through Metro matrix. The Metro matrix allows the geometric interpretation of a metropolis. It is an abstract model related to the dimension of the sustainability of a territory that is translated into actual context through maps that represent the lines of force of a territory. This structural plan is also complemented with a strategic plan, that is a document reporting the projects needed in a given metropolis. Another set of synthesis maps, the procedure maps, operate at a large scale and aim at highlighting the dynamics and defining strategies for promoting the sustainable development of the metropolis. The value charts are embedded in synthesis maps and aim at capturing the spatial qualities and the territorial values of the everyday living environment of millions of metropolitan dwellers. The outcome of the problem-setting phase is the Metropolitan acupuncture chart. It is a map that arranges the possible locations of the different metropolitan architecture projects by taking into consideration the structure of the metropolis and the needed projects stemming from the metro matrix, and the specialization of the metropolitan dynamics and of the local values resulting from the synthesis maps and the value charts. In the problem-solving phase, the metropolitan architecture projects are developed through site-specific operations as a response to the existing gap and in relation to their potential location defined with the metropolitan acupuncture chart. Nevertheless, the latter act as a framework that stresses the value of the metropolitan architecture projects in building the connections between the big scale of the metropolitan network and the archipelago of the local scale of places to enhance our experience in the space-time of the metropolis. Maps are also instrumental in the final decision-making act. The use of data enables the production of impact scenario maps that simulate long-term scenarios of metropolitan development to evaluate the impact of metropolitan projects on the territory. Finally, the methodology also serves as the basis for developing the metropolitan curriculum. Metropolitan discipline aims at setting an interdisciplinary theoretical and practical training, providing with additional knowledge and skills, tools, and with the introduction of transversal competencies. The aim of the Metropolitan discipline is to define a role for architecture and design disciplines in the metropolitan decision-making chain. The Metropolitan curriculum puts together the theory and the practice. It provides new tools such as metropolitan cartography and its semantic packages that allow to connect territorial intelligences through interdisciplinary knowledge and to represent it spatially on the territory. The Metropolitan discipline aims to equip the learners with the ability to articulate the dialogue, a narrative on all subjects that make up the framework of metropolitan projects, and be able to integrate the complex urbanization process in their strategic plans.